Hi, I'm Cindy Halper, and happy Passover to all my Jewish friends. 5 years ago on Passover, I was living at the Villa del Rio apartments in Warwick, Rhode Island. I was divorced, and I had my boyfriend, Ted, and my daughter and grandson had moved away to Florida already, and my mom was in assisted living. So Ted and I were celebrating Passover, and the Warwick Mall was near the Patuxent River banks, right on it actually, and my apartment was in the parking lot of the Warwick Mall. So I actually lived at the mall, which is appropriate for me. Anyhow, we were celebrating Passover. We had plenty of food. I bought food from Temple Emmanuel, had vendors there selling Passover food, and I'd go into the stores and shops, and everything was set. We had Passover. Ted had a few days off, and we were going to just be in the apartment together and enjoy the food and just hang out. But this particular year, 5 years ago, 2010, the Patuxent River overflowed from rain, and what happened was the parking lot at the Warwick Mall was getting flooded like a river. But the view that Ted and I had from the apartment, we had a back view. We couldn't see what was happening. So the apartment management came and let us know we had to leave, that there was an active flood, and that at this point it was very late in the game, and we had to have police escort get us out because the waters were flowing up. So Ted went to his van, and I went to my car, and we just thought we were going to be escorted out. But by the time we got to the other side of the building, we could see it really was like a river, and we actually saw cars left at the Warwick Mall floating away. I was scared at this point because the water was reaching almost the top of the hood of my car, and I didn't think that I was going to make it. I thought that I would be flooded and I would drown. I didn't know what would happen to Ted. He had a vehicle. He was in his van. So I called my daughter on the cell phone to say goodbye because I thought I would die, and I wanted to say goodbye to her and Scott. I was actually screaming. But the car kept going. Ted was in one vehicle. I was in other cars, maybe 4 or 5 or 6 of us. And the police escort got us to the exit ramp of 295, which was going the wrong way, but the police were ahead of us, and that's the way they showed us to go, so we followed them. And as I made it up the ramp, the water came off my car, and I could see that I wasn't going to drown after all. But believe me, when I saw cars floating away, I really thought I was finished. Anyhow, we went to a hotel to regroup, and I went back to Long Island with Ted, and then a week later I was notified I could come into the apartment again, and my first thought was, well, are my things ruined? But I went to the building that I was in, and the A building, which was in the front, and no, there was no damage to my stuff at all. My stuff was intact. And at this point, Ted and I decided that I would move to Long Island, and they simply let me out of the lease. There was no argument or anything there. I got my deposit back. I hadn't done anything wrong, and I didn't feel comfortable staying in a flood zone. I'd never known it was a flood zone. So actually, I got to get movers to get me out. And the other buildings, B, C, D, and E, their stuff was ruined. Their stuff was flooded. Cars that were left in those parking lots floated away. But I was very lucky, and so at that point I decided to move to Long Island because my mom was in assisted living, and Robin and Scott had moved away to Florida anyhow, so there's nothing really holding me, and I no longer could work. So I decided to move to Long Island, and that was the decision that was made. I don't know, Ted always tells people, oh, well, because she got flooded out of her apartment, and actually I got my deposit back, and I could have moved to a different apartment, but he decided I would move in with him. So it's 5 years that I've lived with Ted. We've been together 7, though, come July. But I'll never forget that day. It was very traumatic for me. I thought I would die, and I don't know, maybe Ted thought I don't think he would have died. He had a van higher up than mine. I don't think he would have died. But I guess maybe that scared him, and he decided he didn't want me to live there in the flood zone. And that's when he decided to let me come live with him. So I'll never know whether he would have decided I would have lived with him anyhow, or whether that just frightened him into making the decision. So there's that uncertainty there in my head. But I've been with him, living with him 5 years now, and it hasn't always been easy, the transition to Long Island. But there's been good points and bad points, and unknown what the future will bring, but hopefully no more surprises like that anymore.